Let me start with a provocative statement. Most people aren't living their own lives. Not in the sense that someone else made their decisions, in the sense that fear, exhaustion, and habit were the ones deciding. And they've been at it so long, the person stopped noticing. He just lives, day after day. And somewhere inside, there's a quiet, almost inaudible feeling. Something's off. Something important is slipping past. That feeling isn't random. It's a signal. And today, I want to talk about exactly that. Why it shows up. Where this inner deafness comes from. And, most important, whether there's a way out. Not a theoretical one, a real one. Let me start with a story. There's a man I've known for a long time. I'll call him Max. Successful by every outside measure. Good job, family, car, house. But one day he said something to me I never forgot. I wake up every morning and the first thing I feel is exhaustion. Before I've even gotten out of bed, I asked him, exhaustion from what? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, from myself, I guess. That's an honest answer, a rare one, because most people never get to it. They blame their exhaustion on work, the weather, getting older, on anything except what's going on inside. Here's what actually happens every morning for most of us. We open our eyes, and before the first thought, the brain is already pulling yesterday's files out of the archive. The unresolved situations, the strained relationships, the worries that didn't go anywhere overnight. And before we've even gotten up, we're already living in the past. That's not a metaphor. That's physiology. Every memory tied to pain or fear carries a chemical trace. And when the brain pulls it up, the body reacts as if the event is happening right now. Not yesterday, not 3 years ago. Now. The heart tightens a little. The breath gets a little shorter. The shoulders ride a little higher. And the day that's barely begun is already colored the same shade as everyone before it. Then the phone, Instagram, news, group chats. Not because anything there matters, because it's another reality. One where you don't have to think about your own. A few minutes of the illusion that you're somewhere else. And then, the same drive to work, the same people, the same conversations. And without noticing it, another day gets lived exactly like yesterday. That's not called fate. That's called a program. By 35, by some estimates, about 95% of our behavior is already automatic. We don't choose most of our reactions. We replay them. Like an actor who's played one role so long, he no longer remembers whether it's the role or himself. And here's what's important to understand, not as a theory, but as a living truth about yourself. These patterns didn't come out of nowhere. Each one has a story. The boy who got mocked for his tears grows into a man who can't ask for help and proudly calls it independence. The girl who was praised only for her achievements grows into a woman who's afraid to be wrong and calls it perfectionism. The person who got betrayed at a crucial moment builds walls around himself and calls it common sense. None of it is weakness. It's an old defense, one that used to work, one that helped you survive where it hurt. But the time passed and the defense stayed. And now it doesn't protect you anymore. It confines you. Here's where most people make the same mistake. They think the way out is adding a new course, a new book, a new habit, a new self-improvement challenge. They pile on layer after layer and wonder why it only gets heavier. But transformation works the other way, not by adding, by clearing away. There's an image I keep coming back to when I talk about change. A sculptor stands in front of a block of marble. He doesn't bring an extra stone with him. He takes away what doesn't belong. He chips off whatever's hiding the shape that's already inside. That's the whole point. The shape is already there. It was there from the start. And every one of us, if we're honest, has a sense of that shape. Not in terms of career or status, in a deeper sense, the kind of person I'm meant to be. What in my life is real, and what's a pile of other people's expectations, old fears, and convenient stories about myself. This knowing isn't invented, it's placed there. I'm convinced every person has a design, and that design isn't an accident. Call it intuition, call it conscience, call it the voice of the Creator. It comes to the same thing. There's something inside each of us that knows the truth. And the task isn't to create that something, it's to hear it again. Under everything that's drowned it out over the years. Friends, a quick pause. If what we're talking about is resonating with you, please give this video a like. It helps the channel grow, and it lets conversations like this reach the people who need them right now. Thank you. Now, something most people don't expect from the process of change, that it's going to hurt. Not physical pain, a different kind. The kind that shows up when you start seeing yourself honestly. When you realize how much time went into not seeing, how much energy went into propping up a picture that was comfortable but not real. Someone I know once told me, at some point I just decided to accept myself the way I am. I stopped fighting. I asked, and what changed? He thought about it and said, nothing. It got quieter, but nothing. That's the difference between acceptance and surrender. Acceptance is seeing yourself clearly, without cruelty. Surrender is calling your limitations character and giving up on the work. The first one frees you. The second just makes the cage more comfortable. There's a place in the process of change I call the middle. It's not the beginning, there's still enthusiasm there. And it's not the end, there's a result there already. It's the middle, the hardest point. The old reactions don't work anymore. You see right through them, you recognize them. But the new ones haven't become natural yet. They take effort every single time. Like taking a different route to work. It seems better, but every morning you have to remind yourself where to turn. This is exactly where most people stop. Not because they can't go on, because nothing's changed on the outside yet. And it feels like nothing's changed on the inside either. But that's an illusion. The work is already happening inside. It's just like the roots of a tree. You can't see them. They're underground. But they're what decides whether the tree stands when the storm comes. A farmer plants a field and goes home. The ground looks empty. A week goes by, still empty. But under the surface, something's already happening. And pity the man who digs it all up in November, deciding nothing's growing. Inner change works exactly like that. First, it changes how you react to small things. How you talk to yourself at 3 in the morning. What you start to notice in yourself. And what you can't pretend not to notice anymore. And only then, with a delay that's always longer than you'd like, does it start showing on the outside. A lot of people give up right before the breakthrough. Don't walk away from that threshold. I want to say a few words about where the strength for all of this comes from, because that's not a rhetorical question. These days, one answer is popular. The strength is inside you. You're the source. Just believe in yourself. It sounds great. It sells well. But anyone who's honestly built a life on willpower alone, especially after serious falls, knows that resource runs out. And often right when you need it most. There's a difference between two people who, on the outside, are doing the same thing, changing their lives. The first one does it out of pride, to prove something, to himself, to others. That he's capable, that he's strong, that he can handle it on his own. He moves fast, while he's moving. But the first serious obstacle often breaks him, because the foundation is ego, and ego is fragile. The second one does it from a different place, from an admission. I'm not all-powerful. I'm not perfect. But I was made for something more than what I'm living now. And I need help that's bigger than I am. That's not weakness, it's precision. The understanding that a person isn't the peak of himself, that there's a design bigger than our ideas about ourselves, and that trusting that design isn't a religious slogan, it's a practical decision. One that changes the quality of the road itself. The creator, if you want to call him that, doesn't turn away from a person who's fallen and doesn't know how to get up. He turns away from the one who's decided he can handle it alone and doesn't need any help. Now, about patience. I know the word sounds boring, but I'm asking you to keep it next to you for one more minute. We live in a culture that promises everything, and promises it now. Transformation in 3 weeks, a new mindset in one webinar, happiness for the price of a subscription. And we've gotten so tired of waiting that we've stopped believing in anything that takes time. But here's a simple question. Think of someone you genuinely respect. Not for money, not for status, for depth, for inner steadiness, for how that person holds up in hard situations. Ask him, or ask yourself about him, what did it cost? How many times did he start over? Good character isn't the result of one insight. It's the sum of hundreds of small decisions nobody saw. When you chose honesty over a convenient lie, nobody applauded. When you chose responsibility over running, nobody hit like. When you stayed faithful to what you knew was right, at the moment it would have been easier to give up, only you saw it. And the Creator, who, I'm convinced, sees exactly that. Not the outer results, not the pretty picture, but what's happening inside, in the moments when no one's watching. And one last thing, about where this conversation is going. Today I've talked about hard things, about most people living on autopilot, which isn't their fault, but it is their responsibility. About change being painful, slow, and demanding more than motivation. About the middle where it's uncomfortable. About patience, which there's never enough of. But here's what I want you to hear at the end. A person who's decided to look at himself honestly is already not the person he was yesterday. Right there in that decision, something changes. Not on the outside, inside. The angle you look at your own life from, that's what changes. You don't have to become a different person from scratch. You have to become yourself, the real one, the one you were meant to be, before all the layers of fear, before all the protective stories, before everything you took for yourself, even though it was never you. That's the kind of transformation that holds. Not the one born from wanting to prove something, the one born from a quiet decision. I want to live in line with what I was made for, not with what's expected of me, not with what's comfortable, with what's real. That decision doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It doesn't wait until you've figured everything out. It asks one thing: begin, today, from here, from the place where you're standing right now. You're capable of this. I'm convinced of it. And I mean this seriously. The one who placed that design in you is more convinced of it than you are. Change doesn't begin the moment you decide to get better. It begins the moment you decide to be honest with yourself, all the way. If this conversation was helpful to you, please give it a like. And write something in the comments. That helps the video travel too. Any word at all. It's a small gesture, but it lets material like this reach the people who need it. And one more thing. If you're thinking of someone right now, a friend, someone close who might be going through something similar, send them this video. Sometimes the words a person needs come through someone else's hands. This might be exactly the moment they need to hear. They're not alone, and there's a way out. It'll help them, and me too. Thank you for being here. Until next time.